Among the countless mysteries that echo through human history, few captivate the imagination as much as the story of the Knights Templar, a brotherhood of warrior monks whose influence spanned continents and centuries. They were soldiers and financiers, protectors and explorers, guardians of secrets said to predate Christianity itself. Officially, their order ended more than 700 years ago. Unofficially, some claim that it never truly died. Its bloodlines, knowledge, and hidden power may still shape the world we live in today. To understand the forbidden legacy of the Templars, we must begin where their journey truly started, amidst the smoke and turmoil of the Crusades, in the blood-soaked heart of the Holy Land, the world before the Templars. The 11th century was a time of turbulence, ambition, and fanatic faith. Across Europe, kings and popes rallied their people under the banner of the cross, promising glory and salvation in the name of reclaiming Jerusalem. In 1095, Pope Urban II ignited a fire that would burn for centuries. He called on Christian warriors to liberate the holy city from Muslim rule. His words spread like wildfire across kingdoms, where knights, peasants, and nobles alike sought redemption and adventure. The First Crusade was brutal and chaotic. The armies of Christendom were not unified, but fractured, filled with rival lords and mercenaries. They endured starvation, disease, and bloody sieges. Yet, against all odds, in 1099, Jerusalem fell. Crusaders carved out fragile Christian states in the Middle East, known as the Crusader kingdoms, but their hold was tenuous. Pilgrims who traveled to the Holy Land to worship at sacred sites often faced death on the treacherous roads. Bandits, desert raiders, and remnants of Islamic forces made the journey perilous. It was in this volatile world that a new kind of order would be born, the humble beginning. In the year 1119, a French knight named Hugues de Payan arrived in Jerusalem with 8 companions. These were not ordinary knights. They had sworn vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, dedicating themselves fully to the protection of Christian pilgrims. They approached King Baldwin II of Jerusalem, proposing a mission: to form a brotherhood devoted to safeguarding the roads for those who came to worship at the Holy Sepulchre. The king agreed, and the small band was granted a base of operations that would forever link them to one of history's greatest mysteries. They were housed on the Temple Mount, the most sacred and contested site in the ancient world. This was the very place where Solomon's temple had once stood, a temple said to have contained the Ark of the Covenant, a relic of unimaginable spiritual power. Muslims called the site Haram al-Sharif, home to the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. To medieval Christians, its significance was no less profound. At first, the knights called themselves the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, a humble name that would soon become legendary as simply the Knights Templar. The mystery beneath the Temple Mount, their choice of headquarters, immediately sparked rumors. Why would 9 knights need residence atop the holiest site of all, when so many churches and fortresses were available? Some historians suggest practicality, but legends whisper of something more: that these first Templars began secret excavations beneath the Temple Mount. Medieval accounts hint at tunnels and chambers sealed for centuries. Later writings claim the Templars unearthed treasures and knowledge hidden since the time of Solomon, objects that could alter the course of history. Among these were said to be the Ark of the Covenant, the chest said to carry the 10 Commandments and channel divine power; the Holy Grail, believed by some to be a vessel of miraculous properties, or even a bloodline itself. Ancient scrolls containing genealogies, esoteric teachings, or forbidden wisdom passed down from pre-Christian civilizations. Whatever they found, it transformed their destiny, from paupers to power. For nearly a decade, the Templars remained a small, obscure order. But then came recognition from the Church. In 1129, the Council of Troyes, under the guidance of the influential abbot Bernard of Clairvaux, officially sanctioned the Templars. The Pope granted them unique privileges. They were answerable to no king, bishop, or prince, only to the Pope himself. From that moment, the Templars rose with astonishing speed. Their white mantles, adorned with a simple red cross, became symbols of both fear and awe. They were the sword and shield of Christendom, defending the Crusader states with unmatched discipline and courage. But their true strength lay not only on the battlefield. Across Europe and the Holy Land, the Templars built a network of preceptories, fortified command centers that also served as banks, farms, and administrative hubs. They pioneered financial systems that allowed pilgrims and merchants to deposit wealth in one location and withdraw it in another, using coded documents, an early form of the modern bank check. Kings entrusted them with their treasuries. Merchants relied on their vaults for safe storage. Soon, the Templars were the financial backbone of Europe. Their wealth grew beyond comprehension. They owned vast estates, fleets of ships, and a private army that could rival any kingdom. Rumors spread that they also held something far more valuable: knowledge. Esoteric rituals, sacred geometry, and secret archives filled with ancient truths whispered to exist only within the order. The growing shadows. By the late 1200s, the Templars were no longer merely protectors. They were power brokers. Monarchs borrowed fortunes from them. Popes relied on their influence. They had become untouchable. Yet, in the shadows, envy and fear grew. The Templars' secrecy, combined with their enormous power, birthed rumors of strange rites. Some accused them of heresy, idol worship, and even occult practices. Whispers spread that they had discovered forbidden truths, perhaps about the origins of Christianity itself, or the bloodlines of those who carried divine heritage. But their rise was not eternal. Beyond the horizon, a storm was brewing that would change the course of history forever. The smoke of Jacques de Molay's execution had barely drifted across the Seine when whispers of the Templars' survival began to spread. Though the world believed the order to be extinguished, hidden fires still burned. Beneath the ashes of persecution, the Brotherhood had already planted the seeds of its rebirth. In the months before the arrests of 1307, the Templars seemed almost to sense their impending doom. Their treasure fleets had vanished from La Rochelle, their archives in Paris were mysteriously emptied, and a portion of their fighting force quietly disappeared from public view. The arrests caught hundreds, but not all, and certainly not the most prepared. It is said that some among the inner circle, the so-called keepers of the secret, were entrusted with more than just gold. They carried maps, codes, genealogies, and the sum of esoteric knowledge that had elevated the Templars beyond mere knights. Their mission was clear. If the order was to fall in the eyes of men, its blood and wisdom must live on. The flight to Scotland. Scotland at that time was a land both perilous and promising. Robert the Bruce, excommunicated by the Pope after the murder of his rival John Comyn, had little reason to honor papal decrees. For a fugitive order like the Templars, this made Scotland an ideal refuge. Chroniclers of the era make fleeting references to mysterious warriors who appeared on Scottish soil after the fall of the order. At the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, legend holds that an unexpected cavalry charge shattered the English lines. Some accounts describe them as armoured knights bearing a red cross, their banners unfamiliar to Scottish soldiers, yet feared by their foes. Whether myth or memory, these figures became entwined with the story of the Templars' northern escape. What is more certain is that Scotland became a cradle for symbolic survival. Here, the traditions and rituals of the order could quietly evolve, passing from one generation to the next. Local stonemasons, already skilled in building the castles and cathedrals that dotted the Highlands, absorbed fragments of Templar lore. Over the next centuries, those fragments would resurface as part of the enigmatic rituals of Freemasonry, echoing the geometry, secrecy, and brotherhood the Templars once embodied. The Knights of Christ in Portugal. While Scotland offered sanctuary, Portugal offered continuity. King Denis of Portugal, a shrewd and visionary ruler, recognized the value of the Templar legacy. In 1319, he petitioned the Pope to establish a new military order, the Order of Christ, which inherited the lands, ships, and resources of the Templars in Portugal. Officially, this was an entirely new brotherhood, loyal to the Church and untainted by the shadow of heresy. In reality, it was the Templar Order, reborn under a different name. The same men, the same discipline, the same secret missions. Only the banner had changed. Under this new guise, the Templar legacy became the engine of the Age of Discovery. Prince Henry the Navigator, a Grand Master of the Order of Christ, sent forth ships bearing the Templar cross on their sails. These expeditions pushed past the familiar shores of Europe and into the uncharted Atlantic, mapping islands, coasts, and sea routes unknown to medieval cartographers. The whispers of ancient maps and hidden knowledge surface again here. Some theorists suggest that the Templars, or their successors, already possessed fragments of old seafaring charts, perhaps learned from their time in the Holy Land or inherited from older civilizations. Was it coincidence that Portuguese explorers seemed to sail with uncanny precision toward the edges of the known world? Or was this the fulfillment of a plan that had survived the fires of persecution? The bloodlines take root. The Templars' most enduring survival was not in fortresses or fleets, but in families. When the order dissolved, many surviving knights sought protection in the households of sympathetic nobility. In exchange for sanctuary, they offered loyalty, gold, and something even more valuable, their lineage. By marrying into local aristocratic families, former Templars wove their blood into the tapestry of European nobility. Their descendants carried fragments of the Brotherhood's secrets, sometimes encoded in heraldry, manuscripts, or oral traditions passed from parent to child. In time, the line between old nobility and Templar bloodlines blurred, creating an invisible network of influence that endured for generations. This pattern repeated across France, Spain, Portugal, Scotland, and Italy. Some of Europe's most prominent banking families arose in regions once dotted with Templar preceptories, as though the land itself had seeded wealth into those willing to inherit the order's legacy. The Swiss cantons, too, deserve mention. After the Templars' fall, Switzerland became a bastion of neutrality, finance, and formidable fortress towns. The theory that fugitive Templars contributed to the early foundations of Swiss banking and militia culture remains compelling. The timing and geography align almost too well. The forbidden knowledge. If gold and bloodlines ensured the Templars' material survival, knowledge ensured their mythic survival. What exactly had the Templars discovered beneath the Temple Mount? Scholars, mystics, and conspiracy theorists have debated this for centuries. Some claim they found the Ark of the Covenant, hidden since the Babylonian conquest of Jerusalem. Others speak of the Holy Grail, not a cup, but a lineage, secret genealogies, proving the survival of a sacred bloodline from biblical times. More sober researchers suggest ancient texts, scrolls that contained advanced mathematics, astronomical charts, or esoteric teachings that predated Christianity itself. The Templars' sudden leap from humble warriors to master financiers and builders may hint at access to such knowledge. Whatever the truth, the persecution of the order did not erase their legacy. If anything, it forced it underground, turning history into legend and legend into power. From shadows to secret societies. By the 17th and 18th centuries, Europe saw the rise of secret societies, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, and other esoteric orders claiming descent, inspiration, or initiation from the Templar tradition. Freemasonry, in particular, carries a symbolic resonance with the Templars. The focus on sacred geometry, the building of spiritual temples, the secrecy of rituals, and the ideal of fraternal loyalty all mirror the medieval brotherhood. While mainstream historians treat these connections cautiously, the symbols speak louder than documents. Some Masonic rites explicitly invoke the Knights Templar as the protectors of hidden wisdom, a title that resonates with centuries of whispers about forbidden bloodlines and concealed treasures. The hidden hand of finance. Beyond myth, the practical influence of Templar descendants and their ideological heirs is evident in the financial architecture of Europe. Families that rose from the regions of former Templar wealth became early bankers, moneylenders, and traders. Their influence quietly shaped monarchies, funded wars, and later guided the formation of international finance networks. From Venetian merchants to Swiss bankers, the echoes of the Templars' methods, secure deposits, coded records, and mobile wealth never truly vanished. Even today, the concept of offshore banking and international finance bears the hallmarks of the Templar model. Wealth that is borderless, protected, and hidden from direct authority. Legacy in the modern age. By the modern era, the Templars had long since passed into legend, but their legacy endured in three forms. Bloodlines, woven into European nobility, producing dynasties that influenced politics, finance, and empire building. Knowledge, preserved in esoteric traditions, resurfacing in secret societies and symbolic architecture. Wealth, transmuted into the foundations of modern banking, trade, and exploration. The Templar cross may no longer fly on the battlefield, but its imprint lies in the invisible structures of power, from the ships that discovered the New World to the vaults of Swiss banks, from the ornate halls of Freemasonry to the genealogies of Europe's oldest families. And yet, the final mystery remains. If their treasure was never recovered, if their archives never surfaced, then somewhere, hidden in the folds of history, the last will and testament of the Knights Templar may still await discovery. The Templars may have been condemned in the eyes of the world, but the 13th and 14th centuries were only the beginning of their true story. Where fire and rope ended their public lives, shadows and whispers began their private dominion. Those who thought the Templars had perished misunderstood the very nature of their power. It had never been rooted in kings or papal favor, but in knowledge, networks, and blood. The Map of Shadows. After the suppression of the order in 1307, the world saw only the wreckage of a once mighty brotherhood. Imprisoned knights, burned masters, and confiscated lands. What the world did not see was the Map of Shadows, an invisible network of safe havens, secret routes, and loyal families that had been years in the making. Ports in exile. From La Rochelle to Mallorca to the Azores, Templar ships found discreet harbor. Fortified monasteries in Aragon, Castile, and remote Italian valleys, old Templar outposts became quiet refugees for fugitives. Hidden treasuries, gold, jewels, and relics were dispersed across Europe, some buried, some entrusted to sympathetic abbots or nobles. The map of shadows was more than logistical survival. It was a design for resurrection. Even as the church and crown hunted them, the Order's surviving commanders charted a centuries-long game, one in which they would trade visibility for endurance and vengeance for influence. The Mediterranean Brotherhood. While some Templars sought sanctuary in Scotland and Portugal, others turned to the Mediterranean, a sea of shifting loyalties and secret commerce. The Knights Hospitaller, rivals turned uneasy allies, absorbed many former Templars under the banner of Malta and Rhodes. Though outwardly the Hospitallers swore allegiance to Rome, there were rumors of silent Templar enclaves operating beneath their command structure, a shadow order within the order. From the 14th to 15th centuries, the Mediterranean trade lanes became the lifeblood of hidden Templar wealth. They invested in merchant fleets, financed spice and silk trade, and even, according to some chronicles, engaged in clandestine trade with the Mamluks and early Ottomans, despite papal bans. Ships bearing discreet marks, a cross hidden in a knot of rope or a dragon carved in the prow, moved like ghosts across the sea, carrying not only goods but messengers, relics, and refugees, the Grail as blood. By the dawn of the Renaissance, the Templars' greatest secret had shifted from gold and relics to genealogy. The suppression of the order forced many surviving knights to integrate into noble society. But this was not mere survival, it was strategy. Through carefully arranged marriages, adoption of new names, and loyal service to their protectors, the Templar Bloodlines began to infiltrate European aristocracy. Across France, Spain, Portugal, and Italy, families of obscure origin suddenly rose in influence during the 14th and 15th centuries, often in proximity to former Templar holdings. Their heraldry bore subtle clues, red chevrons or crosses echoing the Templar banner, eight-pointed stars resembling the Star of Redemption, lions and serpents entwined, a symbol of hidden duality. These families became bankers, merchants, and patrons of the arts. Some names survive in the annals of Venice, Florence, and the Hanseatic cities, while others dissolved into the mist of minor nobility. The Holy Grail in this context was not a cup, but a lineage, a living thread carrying secrets that no book or vault could contain. If captured, it could marry into another family. If hunted, it could vanish into obscurity. Blood was the perfect vessel of memory. The Renaissance awakening. By the 15th century, Europe awoke to the Renaissance, a flowering of art, science, and exploration. Behind this surge of innovation lay hidden financiers, secret patrons, and cryptic symbols, all of which bore the faint fingerprints of Templar survival. Florence and Venice. Banking families like the Medici and others rose to unprecedented power. Some researchers note that their accounting systems and coded ledgers mirrored Templar methods for protecting assets. Art and symbolism. Works commissioned in this era, from Da Vinci to Poussin, are laden with esoteric iconography, suggesting the quiet guidance of initiates who carried forward Templar and pre-Christian mysteries. Navigation and exploration. Portuguese voyages under Prince Henry the Navigator whose sails bore the red Templar cross, opened the Atlantic. These were not random wanderings. They were precise ventures, as if guided by maps and knowledge far older than Columbus. In essence, the Renaissance was a veil. To the masses, a rebirth of culture. To the initiated, the re-emergence of the hidden order's influence after a century in the shadows. Esoteric orders and the Templar current. By the late Renaissance, secret societies began to codify and ritualize the currents of Templar knowledge that had long flowed underground. Freemasonry, rooted in the guilds of medieval stonemasons, it absorbed Templar symbols, crossed swords, the compass and square, the temple itself, into a new spiritual fraternity. Rosicrucians, emerging in the 17th century, they wove alchemy, mysticism, and hidden lineage into their manifestos, echoing whispers of a sacred bloodline. Hermetic circles. In courts, from Prague to London, mystics and scholars pursued the urgi, sacred geometry, and encrypted knowledge that paralleled old Templar legends. To outsiders, these were eccentric societies. To initiates, they were the inheritors of a current stretching back to the Temple of Solomon, transmitted through Templar survivors, and some claim rooted in the wisdom of civilizations long vanished. The Invisible Empire. By the 16th and 17th centuries, the Templar legacy had become an invisible empire. Financially, it thrived in the banking houses of Switzerland, the trade fleets of Portugal and the Netherlands, and the merchant guilds of Italy. Politically, it influenced courts through strategic marriages, lending, and quiet advisory roles. Esoterically, it whispered through lodges, monasteries, and secret libraries, shaping the minds of philosophers, architects, and explorers. The papacy that had once condemned the order could no longer root it out, for the Templars had ceased to exist as a single body. They had become a network, a bloodline, a philosophy, immune to the swords of kings and the decrees of popes, whispers of the New World. Among the most enduring mysteries of the Templar survival is their apparent foresight of the New World. Legends tell of strange voyages from La Rochelle and Portuguese ports in the early 14th century, decades, perhaps centuries, before Columbus. Carvings in Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland seem to depict New World flora like maize and aloe, long before these were known in Europe. If the Templars or their successors reached the Americas, they may have hidden caches, relics, or settlements in remote lands. Some claim this is the origin of persistent tales of Oak Island, of pre-Columbian European artifacts in North America, and of encrypted maps found in secret archives. These stories suggest that the Templar mission did not end in Europe. It expanded across oceans into the unknown, planting seeds for a future that would eventually rise as global trade and empire. The bloodline legacy today. Even in the 21st century, the echoes of forbidden bloodlines remain. Genetic studies of European nobility occasionally reveal unexpected connections across centuries and borders, as if threads once sewn in secrecy continue to knit together the web of power. Certain families, silent, discreet, immensely wealthy, trace their origins to regions heavy with Templar history, their archives closed, their heraldry unchanged for centuries. And somewhere, in private vaults and whispered genealogies, the map of shadows and the book of blood, the hidden register of the Templar survival may still exist, waiting, watching, ready to emerge when the world once again forgets the lessons of its own past. The Atlantic Veil. In the aftermath of their suppression, the Templars who fled to Portugal became entwined with the Order of Christ, a successor institution founded under the guidance of King Denis in 1319. Though officially a new order, its knights wore the familiar red cross, slightly altered in design to evade papal scrutiny. From their strongholds along the Atlantic, they gazed westward across an uncharted ocean, a horizon that called to their deepest instincts of exile and pilgrimage. Historians record that Prince Henry, the Navigator, patron of Portugal's maritime expansion, was the Grand Master of the Order of Christ. Beneath his guidance, caravels bore the Red Cross of the Templars, their sails a silent declaration to the initiated. Expeditions to Madeira, the Azores, and beyond followed routes hinted at in secret charts rumored to have been preserved from the days of La Rochelle, where Templar fleets had vanished into the mists. Mythic islands, Antillia, High Brazil, and the Isle of Seven Cities appeared on Portolan maps, suggesting knowledge predating Columbus. If the Atlantic Vale concealed lands rich with opportunity, the Templars would have reached them first. The world might see the Age of Discovery as the triumph of crowns and flags, but in the shadows, it was a continuation of the Templar mission, carried across oceans, the New World, and the Hidden Cross. By the early 16th century, whispers circulated in royal courts. Symbols of the Templar cross had been seen carved into stones deep in the American interior. Some chroniclers spoke of red cross markers on Caribbean islets, far from known shipping routes. Indigenous oral traditions from Mesoamerica and the Mississippi region referenced bearded strangers arriving in ships of white sails, long before the Spaniards set foot on their shores. A few missionaries, puzzled by pre-Columbian crosses, speculated that the faith had somehow preceded them, though they could not explain why these crosses so often bore 8 points, like the Templar and Maltese cross. Whether these accounts are exaggerated or suppressed, they suggest the Templar current had already reached the New World, carrying with it knowledge, relics, or perhaps bloodlines to be sown in distant soil. The architects of silence. While fleets roamed the oceans, the Templar inheritors in Europe played another game, the architecture of secrets. From the late Middle Ages into the Renaissance, a wave of cryptic sacred construction swept across Europe. Rosslyn Chapel, Scotland. Completed in the 15th century, its pillars and arches teem with enigmatic carvings, from maize and aloe, plants of the New World, to the apprentice pillar, whose spiraling form mirrors the tree of life in Kabbalistic mysticism. Chartres and the Gothic legacy. Though predating the fall of the order, its cryptic floor labyrinths, stained glass constellations, and geometric precision encode esoteric maps and initiatory paths that the Templars championed. Florentine palazzos and hidden chambers. Wealthy patrons, some secretly tied to Templar bloodlines, commissioned hidden rooms, alchemical symbols, and star alignments within their estates, creating sanctuaries for study and ritual. Templar architecture was never just stone, it was encoded memory. Each cathedral, chapel, and fortress became a living book, teaching geometry, astronomy, and mystical truths to those who could read the language of proportion and light, the language of codes. By the 16th century, the Templar current had evolved into an invisible code war, embedding its wisdom in symbols, ciphers, and allegories, manuscripts, and grimoires. Texts such as the Voynich manuscript and other enigmatic codices may represent encrypted transmissions of sacred knowledge, indecipherable to outsiders. Some are thought to preserve maps of sacred sites, alchemical formulae, and bloodline genealogies. Artistic canvases. Renaissance and Baroque painters often wove subtle Templar motifs into works commissioned by patrons tied to hidden networks. Poussin's Et in Arcadia Ego, for instance, is long speculated to reference sacred tombs and the Grail bloodline. Masonic rituals. Freemasonry inherited layered degrees of initiation designed to filter seekers from the profane. Within its inner circles, certain rituals preserve Templar traditions, including the reconstruction of the temple, an eternal metaphor for spiritual and societal renewal. Through codes and secrecy, the Templar current ensured that truth would survive persecution, whispered from generation to generation without ever fully surfacing. The Esoteric War. The Templar survival was not unopposed. Across the centuries, their forbidden knowledge and bloodlines faced shadowy adversaries, forces equally adept in the arts of secrecy. The Inquisitorial Church. Even after the formal dissolution of the Inquisition, its intelligence networks sought to detect and eliminate heretical currents. Secret archives in Rome, some say in the Vatican's Archivum Secretum, hold files on Masonic lodges, Templar-descended families, and esoteric manuscripts. Royal absolutism. Kings who once feared Templar financial power grew wary of their subtle infiltration of aristocracy and commerce. France's Louis XIV and Spain's Philip II both quietly funded efforts to map and control hidden orders, though they could never fully sever the invisible web. Competing secret societies. Not all esoteric orders were aligned. Jesuit scholars, Rosicrucians, and early Illuminist cells sometimes clashed over who would inherit the spiritual and temporal influence of the vanished Templars. By the 18th century, Europe had become a continent of masks, salons, lodges, academies, and brotherhoods, all mirroring and opposing one another, all playing the game of hidden empire. The bloodline and the compass. As the Enlightenment unfolded, the Templar current took yet another form. Global expansion under new flags. North America, the architecture of Washington, D.C., with its geometric street plan, compass alignments, and obelisks, reflects Masonic and Templar influence, embedding ritual geometry into the capital of a new nation. Early American leaders, many Freemasons, were heirs, directly or philosophically, to the Templar stream of secret liberty and hidden governance. South America. Certain Jesuit missions, particularly in Paraguay, display enigmatic Templar symbols in their stonework and relics. Myths persist of lost cities and forbidden vaults in the Andes, perhaps tied to treasure fleets or Templar voyages centuries earlier. The compass rose, once a tool of survival for Templar navigators, became the symbol of a new age of hemispheric influence, its points marking the spread of their legacy to every shore. The hidden pulse of history. From the fall of Jerusalem to the New World, the Templars had rewritten the rules of survival. Where their enemies relied on thrones and armies, the Templar bloodlines relied on memory, adaptability, and invisibility. Even now, the world we see may be but a shadow play, the surface of history masking deeper currents. Financial systems seeded by ancient Templar banking practices. Esoteric philosophies shaping modern occultism and secret societies. Architectural fingerprints in capitals, cathedrals, and monuments. Bloodlines that move quietly through power, their influence subtle but enduring. In every century, a few scholars, mystics, and seekers have glimpsed the truth, often at great cost. For to trace the forbidden bloodlines of the Templars is to risk joining the long list of those who disappeared into the margins of history, a history the Templars themselves helped write and rewrite for 700 years. The world had changed. Kingdoms rose and fell, oceans were crossed, and the empires of Europe carved their dominion into every continent. Yet beneath the noise of wars and treaties, the heartbeat of the Templar current persisted, silent, patient, and ever adaptive. Where others saw history as linear, the heirs of the temple understood it as cyclical, an unending ritual of concealment and revelation, of loss and rebirth, woven through the blood of families and the stones of hidden vaults. Oak Island, the silent beacon. Off the coast of Nova Scotia lies Oak Island, a tree-draped sentinel battered by Atlantic winds. For centuries, the island has whispered of buried treasure, its mystery luring adventurers, Freemasons, and treasure hunters into a labyrinth of flooded shafts and cursed tunnels. The earliest tales date back to the late 18th century, when local men discovered a circular depression in the earth, layers of logs carefully spaced every few feet, strange inscriptions and symbols on stones that no one could fully translate. The patterns suggested intentional construction, not natural accident. As excavations deepened, the diggers encountered flood tunnels, ingenious booby traps designed to protect something buried far below. Modern investigations link the Oak Island enigma to Templar relics, a lead cross resembling Templar iconography, coconut fibers, alien to the region, implying maritime transport and filtration systems, alleged stone markers with geometric alignments, reminiscent of Masonic and Templar navigational codes. The hypothesis is simple, yet world-shattering if true. The fleeing Templars transported part of their treasure and sacred relics to the New World, entombing them within a vault engineered to survive centuries of secrecy. Whether this cache holds gold, scrolls, or the Holy Grail itself, Oak Island stands as a geographical echo of the Templar exile, a beacon to those who can read the language of the hidden empire, the web of secret societies. By the dawn of the 18th and 19th centuries, the Templar current had fractalized into a constellation of secret societies. Each carried fragments of the old knowledge, often veiled in allegory, sometimes even in opposition to one another. Freemasonry, rooted in medieval stonemason guilds, but spiritually inheriting the Templar ethos. The Scottish Rite and York Rite both feature degrees that explicitly invoke Templar legacy, promising to restore the temple. Lodges became safe houses for philosophical, political, and esoteric transmission from Europe to the Americas. Rosicrucians, cloaked in mystical and alchemical language, this brotherhood sought to harmonize the spiritual science the Templars had absorbed from East and West. Their manifestos spoke of invisible colleges and a great work, echoing the Templar obsession with secret teaching and transformation. Illuminist currents. Emerging in the Enlightenment, groups like the Bavarian Illuminati played at geopolitical influence, using Masonic structures as a cover. Whispers suggest they sought the activation of Templar knowledge for political revolution, catalyzing social upheaval as a form of alchemical renewal. Together, these groups formed a lattice of power and initiation, a web stretching across continents, a network hidden in plain sight. The Vatican and the Shadow Archive. Across the Templar centuries, one silent adversary endured: the Vatican. Despite the Church's public absolution of the Templars in 2007, based on rediscovered papal documents like the Chinon parchment, the relationship remains adversarial beneath the surface. Why? Because within the Archivum Secretum, beneath the marble floors of Vatican City, lies dossiers on Templar survival and bloodlines, maps and correspondence seized during the arrests of 1307. relics and manuscripts deemed too explosive for public release. A few scholars claim that deep within this archive rests proof of the Templar connection to pre-Columbian exploration, even hints of their influence on early Masonic movements and revolutionary cells. To release such knowledge would rewrite history, shaking the foundations of ecclesiastical authority. Thus, the Shadow War continues. The Vatican guards the secrets of the past, while Templar-descended networks manipulate the present. Modern echoes of the Bloodline. In the 20th and 21st centuries, the Templar current no longer needs swords or armor. It has transmuted into influence, global finance, the foundations of modern banking, credit, letters of exchange, and international transfers traced to Templar innovations. Today, families and institutions tied to their bloodline operate in the shadows of global markets. Political dynasties. Certain European and American lineages maintain subtle Masonic and Templar traditions, guiding policy through ritualized philanthropy and discreet networking. Cultural symbolism. From cinema to literature, the Templar mythos reemerges as popular fiction, a ritual of disclosure meant to shape the collective imagination without ever revealing the entire truth. Some researchers believe that major 21st century events, financial crises, wars over sacred sites, and even global tech expansion bear the fingerprints of the same lineage that once rode beneath the Red Cross. The final convergence. All secret currents eventually face a moment of convergence, where cycles align and hidden history bleeds into the open. Across the globe, signs of this awakening emerge. Archaeological anomalies in the Americas, the Middle East, and the Arctic hint at pre-Columbian contact and lost archives. Digital leaks and occult symbolism proliferate in the information age, where truth moves faster than suppression. Secret fraternities increasingly collide with public movements, revealing traces of ancient initiatic rivalry. The Templar current, forged in fire, exile, and oath, moves toward its ultimate revelation. Whether the modern inheritors will use their knowledge for liberation or dominion remains the eternal question, one that humanity may soon confront. Prologue to the Apocalypse. The modern world is a palace of glass built on foundations of sand. Superpowers rise and fall, algorithms monitor billions, and the great engines of commerce hum with the pulse of digital gold. Yet beneath the architecture of global order, an older empire stirs, invisible to the news cycles and beyond the reach of law. The Templar current has never slept. It has watched, waited, and engineered the currents of history for nearly a millennium. And now, as the cycles of prophecy, astrology, and hidden numerology converge, the inheritors of the Red Cross move toward their final act, an orchestration centuries in the making. The Bloodline Council. In a villa overlooking Lake Geneva, far from the noise of cities, 7 figures gather around a circular oak table. This is the Council of the Bloodline, a body older than any parliament and more cohesive than any boardroom. Their names are not in the newspapers. Their influence is whispered in the corridors of central banks, Vatican offices, and defense ministries. The council includes the Keeper of the Seal, guardian of the last authentic Templar seal, its impressions used to authorize actions of irreversible consequence. The Archivist, keeper of the lineage's secret histories and encrypted codices, including maps to remaining vaults in the Americas and the Levant. The Knight Diplomat, embedded in modern geopolitics, orchestrating alliances with Masonic and Rosicrucian cells worldwide. The Banker, a descendant of the original Paris temple treasurers, now controlling shadow networks of wealth through discrete private institutions. The Blood Priestess, the mystic, performing ritual alignments of blood and star, ensuring the lineage remains spiritually and esoterically potent. The Shadow Prince, tied to old European dynasties, influencing cultural and aristocratic circles. The Watcher, a nameless observer, representing the silent military order, ensuring force remains an option. The Council's discussion is not of treasure, but of timelines, ritual cycles, and controlled revelation. Digital dominion and the Templar hand. In the 21st century, warfare is no longer waged solely with steel and gunpowder. It is fought in markets and currency flows, cybernetic networks, cultural influence, and social algorithms. The Templar inheritors, masters of adaptation, have pivoted from castles to code. This is the Council of the Bloodline, a body older than any parliament and more cohesive than any boardroom. Their names are not in the newspapers. Their influence is whispered in the corridors of central banks, Vatican offices, and defense ministries. The council includes the Keeper of the Seal, guardian of the last authentic Templar seal, its impressions used to authorize actions of irreversible consequence. The Archivist, keeper of the lineage's secret histories and encrypted codices, including maps to remaining vaults in the Americas and the Levant. The Knight Diplomat, embedded in modern geopolitics, orchestrating alliances with Masonic and Rosicrucian cells worldwide. The Banker, a descendant of the original Paris temple treasurers, now controlling shadow networks of wealth through discrete private institutions. The Shadow Prince, tied to old European dynasties, influencing cultural and aristocratic circles. The Watcher, a nameless observer representing the silent military order, ensuring force remains an option. The Council's discussion is not of treasure, but of timelines, ritual cycles, and controlled revelation. Digital dominion and the Templar hand. In the 21st century, warfare is no longer waged solely with steel and gunpowder. It is fought in markets and currency flows, cybernetic networks, cultural influence, and social algorithms. The Templar inheritors, masters of adaptation, have pivoted from castles to code. Innovations carry echoes of the Templar letter, banking shadows, crypto and digital banking of credit system. Certain blockchain projects conceal symbolism and geometries identical to those found in Templar and Masonic architecture. Information control, cultural trends, conspiracy theories, and media narratives are seeded and guided, ensuring public curiosity never pierces the core truth. Strategic leaks about Templar treasure and secret societies function as ritual inoculations, teasing revelation while maintaining mystery. Private militaries and black networks. Through intermediaries, the Bloodline exerts influence in global conflicts, mirroring their medieval role as both protectors and arbiters of war. The inheritors understand that dominion in the digital era is not about owning nations, but about controlling the narrative, the flow of wealth, and the keys to data vaults. The Grail Revelation. At the heart of the Templar saga lies the Holy Grail, but not the chalice of simple myth. To the Council, the Grail is polymorphic, a bloodline, descended from sacred unions encoded in medieval Templar symbology, tracing back to the Davidic and Merovingian lines. A knowledge corpus, a repository of spiritual and technological insights from ancient civilizations, including lost Gnostic and Hermetic texts. A quantum device of consciousness, interpreted by some as a technology of the soul, enabling profound transmutation of reality through ritual resonance. The Grail's physical representation may be a set of relics and codices entombed in vaults like Oak Island or beneath Roslin Chapel, but its true power is activated only by the lineage, whose blood carries the epigenetic keys to its awakening. The Templar Apocalypse. The inheritors of the Red Cross do not seek destruction, but apotheosis. For centuries, they have read the stars and the markets alike, awaiting the moment when global instability could be sculpted into a rebirth. The plan, whispered in esoteric cycles, involves four convergences. Financial convergence, a controlled collapse of global markets, followed by the emergence of a new economic order, anchored in a Templar-engineered digital currency. Cultural convergence, a series of ritual disclosures in media, archaeology, and scientific frontiers, revealing fragments of the hidden history. These will prime humanity for acceptance of the Bloodline's return. Geopolitical convergence. Orchestrated conflicts and reconciliations will reshape borders, echoing the medieval Templar strategy of balancing kings against one another. Esoteric convergence. A ritual in a sacred site, perhaps Jerusalem, Roslin, or Oak Island, will unveil the Grail in symbolic or literal form, completing the alchemical cycle. The apocalypse in Templar language does not mean the end of the world, but the unveiling of the hidden world, a transformation of history into mythic truth, the unmasking. As Part 6 approaches its climax, the veil between fiction and reality thins. Across forums, leaked archives, and strange events, patterns emerge that suggest the Council's plan is already in motion. Mysterious archaeological finds in the Levant, aligning with Templar prophecies. Sudden cryptocurrency fluctuations tied to sigils in Masonic geometry. Cultural waves in cinema and gaming romanticizing the Templar ethos, conditioning the collective psyche. The world is being prepared step by step for the return of the Red Cross, not as warriors, but as architects of the next epoch. The forbidden bloodline will no longer hide. Prologue. When the stars align. The world trembles on the precipice. Economic tremors ripple across continents. AI algorithms whisper warnings of market crashes and mass migrations. News anchors speculate about an age of upheaval, yet none comprehend the hand that shapes the turbulence. Above the world stage, 7 figures remain unseen. The Council of the Bloodline. For nearly a millennium, they have moved like ghosts in the machinery of history, guiding, withholding, and waiting for the convergence of the 4 seals. The night sky is their clock, and tonight, the celestial gears align. For the first time since the fall of Acre in 1291, the Templar heirs are ready to unveil the final act of their inheritance, the gathering at Roslin Chapel, Scotland. The air is electric with winter chill, and yet the stone geometry of the chapel hums with an otherworldly resonance. Its carvings, green men, vines, stars, seem almost to shift in the torchlight, alive in their secrecy. One by one, the council enters, the keeper of the seal, carrying a reliquary containing a sliver of the original true cross. The blood priestess, robed in scarlet, a vial of ancestral blood at her throat. The archivist, who bears the encrypted codices, said to contain the final coordinates of the Grail. They are not alone. Around them, initiates from across the globe, bankers, generals, cryptographers, historians, stand in silent witness, forming a circle of living oaths. This night is not a meeting. It is the ritual of unmasking. The four seals. For centuries, the Council has guarded four seals, each representing an axis of power. Seal of blood, the living lineage preserved through centuries of secret unions. Seal of stone, the sacred relics and artifacts tied to the Grail, hidden in vaults beneath Roslin, Oak Island, and the Temple Mount. Seal of word, the codices and encrypted archives that tell the true history of Christ, the Templars, and the Bloodline. Seal of dominion, the global influence over finance, culture, and defense, ensuring the Order's survival. Tonight, these seals are brought into alignment, physically and symbolically, to open the fifth seal, the seal of revelation. The fifth seal is not an object, it is humanity itself, ready to be awakened. The Grail ritual. At the heart of the chapel, beneath a hidden slab revealed only under moonlight, lies a stone chalice, its interior inlaid with gold and carved with sigils of the rose and cross. The blood priestess approaches, chanting in a mixture of Latin, Aramaic, and the secret cant of the Templar diaspora. A vial of ancestral blood is poured into the chalice, mingled with wine infused with frankincense and myrrh. The ritual is a quantum alignment, both symbolic and literal. Symbolic in that it acknowledges the bloodline's unbroken chain and its spiritual right to guide humanity. Literal in that the resonance of the ritual triggers encoded geometries in the chapel, a lattice of light, sound, and frequency designed by medieval masons for this very night. The air vibrates, electronic devices flicker, satellite feeds nearby mysteriously cut to static. When the chalice is lifted, the watcher steps forward, holding an obsidian tablet etched with an ancient star map, the key to the Grail Codex. And then the voice of the ritual speaks, not from the priestess, but from the stone itself. The revelation. The world believes the Grail is a cup. The Church fears it is a bloodline. The scholars speculate it is knowledge. In truth, it is all three, and more. The Grail is a living field of consciousness activated by the confluence of sacred blood, the physical vessel, sacred sight, the geometric amplifier, sacred word, the vibrational key embedded in ritual. The moment the three are united, the fifth seal opens, and the hidden architecture of history becomes visible. Visions flood the witnesses. The fall of Jerusalem in 1187, seen not as a defeat, but as the first step in a century-spanning ritual journey. The execution of Jacques de Molay, whose fiery death sealed the Templar curse and prophecy into motion. The migration of Templar ships to the New World, safeguarding relics for this very moment. The births, marriages, and assassinations that kept the bloodline intact. And finally, the threads of influence through modern banking, warfare, and culture revealed as part of a single hidden design. The Grail's final message is not domination, it is stewardship. Humanity is at the threshold of either transcendence or collapse, and the Templar heirs will offer the path, but never force it. The new dawn. As dawn breaks over Roslin, the Council dissolves into shadow, leaving only symbols behind. A digital key, distributed across the blockchain, unlocking the Grail Codex for those who can decipher it. A ritual broadcast, seeded through global media as fiction, conditioning humanity to seek the truth voluntarily. A financial pivot, timed with market tremors, that will usher in a Templar-backed economic system aligned with the new world order of stewardship. The forbidden bloodline has completed its millennium-long cycle. History will never record this night, but the world will feel its echo in every shift of economy, faith, and collective consciousness. The Templars have returned, not as knights, but as architects of destiny, and the Grail has awakened. Epilogue: The Hidden Future. Somewhere in the Scottish Highlands, a young child, descended from the Blood Priestess, awakens from a dream of light, stone, and song. Across the ocean, a satellite aligns with a precise, mathematical pattern embedded in the chapel's geometry, triggering a silent signal. The world continues, oblivious. But for those attuned, the veil is thinner than ever. The age of secrecy has ended. The age of revelation has begun. The world had changed, though few could see it.
Most humans went about their daily lives, blind to the subtle movements of powers older than any government. But in the hidden chambers of old castles, in private islands shrouded by the mist, and in corporate towers whose glass walls reflected the heavens like silent sentinels, the descendants of the Knights Templar prepared for the next phase of their long design. It had been centuries since Jacques de Molay cursed the Pope and the King of France, centuries since the Grail, or whatever truth the Templars had unearthed beneath the Temple Mount, had been spirited away across oceans and into the folds of secret bloodlines. And yet every age left its fingerprints, quiet ripples that would grow into waves. The modern age was not immune. When the Templar network re-emerged in whispers and hidden deeds, it did not wear the white mantles marked with the Red Cross. It wore suits, uniforms, and encrypted code. They controlled hedge funds, private security firms, and the ghost infrastructure of nations, fiber optic cables, satellite links, rare mineral supply chains. Their symbols were no longer carved in stone, but etched in the digital lattice of global finance. But they were not alone. In the darkest corners of the world, enemies long thought extinct stirred once more. The Vatican's secret inquisition, believed to be a relic of the past, had never truly dissolved. Its agents now operated as consultants for intelligence agencies and cultural think tanks, their mission the same as in the 14th century: to hunt the Templars, destroy their secrets, and claim their power for the Church. Meanwhile, other bloodlines, descendants of monarchs and ancient priest-kings, considered the Templars a threat to their own claim over the divine inheritance of humanity. Some had slept for generations, their wealth hidden in old family trusts and vaults of Swiss banks. Now they awoke, sensing that the Grail War, the true, silent battle for the destiny of the world, was entering its final act. The first shot of the new war was fired in the Arctic Circle. A research station in Svalbard reported a sudden blackout, followed by the disappearance of its entire team. When Norwegian forces arrived 2 days later, they found no bodies, no signs of struggle, only a single Templar cross carved into the ice, glowing faintly with an unnatural blue light. Satellite imagery showed unregistered submarines departing the region, moving beneath the ice like silent predators. Among the intelligence circles, whispers began, "The Templars have found something beneath the polar ice caps." And yet, to the average citizen, nothing had changed. News outlets blamed the blackout on solar flares and the missing scientists on an avalanche. But in hidden networks, private forums, encrypted dark web boards, ancient symbols began to circulate. conspiracy theorists screamed of the return of the Grail Knights. Meanwhile, in Lisbon, a secret meeting convened in the sub-basement of a centuries-old cathedral. 3 figures sat around a table made of black stone. One wore the robes of a cardinal, crimson and severe. Another wore the crisp suit of a corporate magnate, the CEO of a tech conglomerate with stakes in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and space mining. The third was a woman, ageless and sharp-eyed. Her ancestry whispered to stretch back to Robert the Bruce himself. A hologram flickered above the table, an ancient map of the world overlaid with symbols that corresponded to ley lines, Templar preceptories, and modern data nodes. "Their network is awakening," the cardinal said, his voice low but firm. "They have been dormant for centuries," replied the magnate. "Why now?" The woman leaned forward, touching the hologram. A location near Antarctica pulsed red. "Because the ice is melting," she said, "and what they buried there will not stay hidden." Far away in New York City, a man named Alexander Reese stared at an old Templar codex inside his penthouse library. He was a descendant of one of the families that had sheltered the Templars after their persecution. By day, he was a philanthropist, a visible face of wealth and old-world charm. By night, he was the custodian of the Grail's map. For years, his bloodline had held fragments of an ancient puzzle, each family carrying a piece that meant nothing alone, but when assembled, would reveal the path to the final sanctuary. Now he sensed movement. His encrypted network buzzed with alerts, sightings of unknown operatives in old Templar strongholds, digital intrusions into archives once thought unreachable. Someone was hunting the map, and somewhere in the mountains of Scotland, in a castle whose existence was erased from all modern maps, the Grand Master of the Hidden Templars stood before a gathering of his knights. No longer clad in chainmail and tabards, they wore modern tactical gear, their insignia concealed under black coats. Behind him, projected onto the stone wall, was a satellite feed of the Earth, with 13 points of light, the last sanctuaries of the Templar Order. "The Shadow Wars have begun," the Grand Master said, his voice echoing in the ancient hall. "Enemies old and new gather against us. The Grail is stirring, and its power will call to those who are unworthy. We will not allow it to fall into their hands." The knights responded in unison, an oath spoken in Latin, the same vow sworn on the Temple Mount 9 centuries ago. The war was no longer one of swords and shields. It was a war of shadows, of cyber-espionage and silent assassinations, of relics stolen from museums and quantum-encrypted communications. Whole governments moved like puppets to forces they could not see. Central banks twitched under the weight of gold flows that had no recorded source. And yet, this was only the beginning. Because beneath the shifting ice of Antarctica, something ancient awoke. Not a relic, not a mere treasure, but a mechanism. A device whose geometry defied human comprehension, inscribed with sigils older than any known civilization. The Templars had found it first, and its signal now called across the world, summoning not just its guardians, but its rivals. The Shadow Wars had begun, and the world would never see the battle until it was already lost. The Codex Protocol had been whispered about for decades, among the inner circles of the Templar descendants, a contingency plan written in the language of both faith and algorithms. It was neither a book nor a scroll, but a living code, a sequence of operations buried across the world in vaults, hidden data nodes, and old family archives. The Templars had always understood that the world would not remain in the age of swords and castles. Power would migrate to data, to finance, to the unseen web of digital and psychological control. And so, centuries ago, in the wake of their near annihilation, a plan was seeded. Its instructions were scattered, not on parchment, but encrypted into music scores, star charts, and genetic codes. A plan to restore the Templars to dominion the moment the world crossed a certain threshold, a world as interlinked and fragile as a spider's web. That threshold had now been crossed. 1. The trigger. The activation of the Codex protocol began quietly. A quantum server in Luxembourg went offline for 11 seconds before self-rebooting. No one in the public knew, but within those 11 seconds, a chain of silent events unfolded across the globe. Old family bank accounts in Switzerland were emptied and rerouted to private shadow banks. Data caches, some hidden in museums under the guise of audio archives, were released to the Templar mainframes. A signal pinged beneath the Atlantic Ocean, activating long-dormant military satellites built in the 1980s, but never officially listed in any registry. The first sign that something larger was moving came in London, where a private auction of medieval artifacts ended in chaos. A hardened courier case bearing a Templar insignia was stolen from under the noses of MI6 surveillance. The item inside? A holographic key, centuries ahead of its time, designed to unlock the final portion of the Codex. 2. The Scholar and the Assassin. In Florence, Dr. Isabella Conti, an expert in medieval cryptography, had spent her career studying the lost Templar manuscripts. She had discovered patterns in marginalia and old Gregorian chants that hinted at something far greater than religious devotion. One night, while working alone in her study, her computer screen flickered, displaying a sigil she had only seen once, the seal of the 9 Knights, the original founders of the Order. A voice, electronically modulated, spoke through her speakers. "You have seen the edges of the Codex. Do you wish to see the center?" Before she could answer, the window behind her shattered. A masked figure in black tactical armor rolled into the room, moving with the precision of a predator. He held a blade, not a gun. She realized in a flash of terror and awe that the Shadow Wars had come to claim her. 3. The Grail Network. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, Alexander Reese met with a contact in a hidden speakeasy beneath Shinjuku. The city was a neon labyrinth, a perfect place for digital ghosts to meet in person. The contact, known only as Murasame, was a hacker with deep ties to the Yakuza and to secret Shinto archives. She showed Reese a series of diagrams, neural patterns overlaid with ancient Templar runes. "This is the Grail Network," she said. "It's not just a map or a relic anymore, it's alive." The Grail was no longer simply a cup or a bloodline. It was now a cognitive artifact, a network of knowledge and influence that could bend AI, finance, and geopolitics to the will of whoever completed the Codex protocol. "Finish the protocol," Murasame said, "and you don't just control the Order. You control the next evolution of civilization.
4. Antarctica, the awakening. While men and women plotted in cities, nature itself moved in Antarctica. Beneath the ice, the Templars had discovered a geometric vault, older than the pyramids, its surfaces smooth as glass, yet impervious to all known tools. Drones sent inside captured glimpses of rotating mechanisms and pulsing light, as if the structure itself were a living heart. Symbols on the walls matched those in the codex fragments. Some were recognizable: crosses, circles, alchemical stars, but others were alien, curved lines that shimmered when observed through infrared lenses. Then, during the third week of excavation, a pulse was detected. Not sound, not light, a gravitational pulse. Satellites registered the anomaly, and within hours, multiple nations diverted their military or scientific vessels to the region. The Shadow Wars were no longer limited to boardrooms and back alleys. They had breached the threshold of open confrontation. 5. The Council divides. The modern Templar leadership convened in a virtual conclave, their faces hidden behind encrypted avatars. The Grand Master spoke first. The Codex Protocol is active, but the world has changed. To execute its final phase, we must decide: do we rule from the shadows as before, or do we reveal ourselves and claim dominion openly? The council split. The traditionalists argued for the old ways: secrecy, manipulation, control through invisible levers. The radicals believed the world had grown too blind and chaotic to be guided indirectly. They wanted revelation and dominion, a new holy order in the open. And while they debated, the Inquisition moved. In a secret Vatican chamber, cardinals authorized Operation Spear of Longinus, a full mobilization of resources to seize the Antarctic vault and annihilate the Templars if necessary. 6th, digital crucifixion. The first digital strike of the Shadow Wars came without warning. A coordinated cyber attack hit the Templar financial network. Billions of dollars disappeared into dead wallets. Encrypted archives were cracked open by quantum intrusion algorithms, releasing centuries of Templar correspondence into the dark web. But the Templars were prepared. The Codex Protocol had a final safeguard, a countermeasure designed to obliterate not just data, but entire digital infrastructures if triggered. They called it digital crucifixion. At 3:17 UTC, 12 major data centers worldwide experienced simultaneous power feedback loops burning through servers. AI-driven financial trading froze. Civilian internet services in 5 countries went dark for hours. To the world, it was a mysterious tech outage. To those in the Shadow Wars, it was a warning. The Templars would not die quietly again. 7. Toward the endgame. As the Codex Protocol approached completion, a singular truth emerged. The final key was not an object, but a person. A living heir, encoded with the last fragment of the Grail's knowledge, carried in genetic memory. Every faction, the Templars, the Inquisition, the royal bloodlines, began to hunt the heir. And in the depths of Antarctica, the vault began to open. The world was moving toward an endgame no one could stop. The Shadow Wars had escalated beyond anything the world's intelligence agencies could comprehend. Bank collapses, satellite outages, unexplained energy spikes in Antarctica, and whispered assassinations in cities across the globe. Each was a surface tremor of the deeper quake. The Codex Protocol was in motion, and at the heart of it all, unbeknownst to the billions living their ordinary lives, was a single person, the living heir of the Grail. First bloodline of secrets. The heir was not a monarch, a soldier, or a priest. Evelyn Marlowe was a cryptographer living in Lisbon, specializing in dead languages and forgotten ciphers. Her life had been quiet, academic. She had grown up in foster care, unaware of her parentage, always haunted by recurring dreams, labyrinths of light, voices singing in Gregorian tones, and a chalice floating in darkness. On the day her life changed, she received a sealed letter from an anonymous courier. The wax bore the seal of the 9 Knights. Inside was a single sentence. Handwritten in a medieval script, she instantly understood. You carry the codex within. Hours later, her apartment door exploded inward. 2. Hunters and Guardians. 2 factions arrived almost simultaneously. The Inquisition strike team, clad in black ballistic armor marked with a silver cross, their weapons suppressed but deadly. Templar shadows, assassins in civilian disguise, moving like ghosts through the smoke. Evelyn dove beneath her desk as gunfire erupted. Bullets punched through plaster, and a Templar blade clashed with a Vatican combat knife. The air reeked of cordite and blood. Then, in the chaos, a hand grabbed Evelyn and yanked her toward the stairwell. "Run if you want to live," shouted Alexander Reese, his face streaked with sweat and ash. They fled into the streets of Lisbon as a church bell tolled midnight. Behind them, her apartment burned. Above, a drone hovered, projecting a holographic sigil into the smoke, a sign to all factions watching. The heir is in play. 3. Unlocking the genetic codex. The Templars whisked Evelyn to a safe house beneath the city, an old knight's refuge carved into the catacombs. Here, a holographic interface illuminated her bloodline. Your DNA contains a cryptographic lattice, Reese explained, showing a rotating double helix threaded with geometric shapes. The Codex Protocol's final key is alive, inside you. Generations of selective breeding and hidden science, and now you're the endpoint. Evelyn struggled to comprehend. You mean I'm a password? You're the Grail itself, he said quietly. Not a cup, not a relic. The Grail was always knowledge, carried in blood and mind, and now everyone is hunting you. 4. Antarctica. The first confrontation. While the heir was awakening to her role, Antarctica became the first battlefield of open conflict. Satellite images captured 3 massive vessels, one flagged to the Vatican, one under the guise of a corporate research company, Templar Front, and one believed to be Russian special forces, secretly aligned with neither but hunting the Grail for themselves. As the ice cracked under summer sun, the vault opened. From within came light and vibration, a pulsing rhythm that affected even the weather. Winds howled, auroras flared, and animals fled en masse. Drones recorded an interior chamber that resembled both a cathedral and a supercomputer core, its walls covered in glyphs that reacted to human presence. The first soldiers to enter never came back out. 5. The Inquisition's Gambit. The Vatican had prepared a weapon for this moment. Project Seraphim. Deep beneath Rome, engineers had fused ancient Templar blueprints with modern plasma technology to create a device capable of purifying any site of heretical technology. In truth, it was a directed energy emitter. On January 14th, 0314 UTC, Seraphim fired. A beam invisible to the naked eye lanced through the southern hemisphere, striking the Antarctic vault. The ice vaporized in a column a mile wide. The vault sealed itself, retracting into a lower chamber as if alive, and for the first time, the world's magnetosphere fluttered, causing blackouts and compass anomalies across 3 continents. The Inquisition celebrated. The Templars vowed vengeance. Sixth digital exodus. In response to Seraphim's attack, the Templars initiated Phase 9 of the Codex Protocol, digital exodus. All Templar-controlled assets, banks, AIs, hidden labs migrated into an off-world mirror system, leveraging low-orbit satellites and quantum encryption. Within hours, entire financial sectors crashed, triggering panic in markets from New York to Shanghai. Meanwhile, the Grail network activated its next layer. Evelyn's dreams became waking visions. She saw strings of code woven with medieval scripture, and when she spoke the words aloud, dormant satellites reoriented, obeying her voice. She was no longer just the heir. She was becoming the conduit. 7. The betrayal. Inside the Templar Council, fractures deepened. The traditionalists wanted to keep Evelyn hidden, slowly guiding the world from the shadows. The radicals believed the time had come for revelation, a new crusade, with Evelyn as the living Grail Queen. The betrayal came when Lord Kavanaugh, a radical, attempted to broadcast Evelyn's existence to the world via hacked global networks. But the Inquisition intercepted the signal. In a single strike, they traced the Templar safe house in Lisbon. Missiles fell before dawn. Rhys and Evelyn barely escaped, fleeing into the labyrinthine catacombs beneath Europe as the Shadow Wars became a global hunt for one woman. 8. Toward the Great Convergence. As nations faltered and markets wavered, whispers of the supernatural began to seep into the mainstream. People reported visions of the Grail in dreams. Strange auroras shimmered over cities. Water in certain holy sites began to luminesce faintly at night. The world was changing, its reality bending as the Grail network expanded. Every faction knew that the Great Convergence, the final unlocking of the Codex Protocol, was near. It would happen when the heir fully awakened her connection to the Codex. The Vault of Antarctica completed its opening cycle. The Inquisition and Templars clashed in a single, decisive confrontation. And yet, beyond all calculations, something older than both factions stirred in the shadows, watching, waiting for the right moment to reclaim what had once been theirs. The world had entered a state of whispered apocalypse. Governments denied it. News networks spun half-truths. Social media drowned in memes and panic. But those who watched the skies, the oceans, and the hidden corridors of power knew the Great Convergence was beginning. Evelyn Marlowe had not slept in 3 days. Her veins thrummed with a pulse that was not her own, resonating in time with the Codex lattice within her DNA. When she closed her eyes, she saw geometric grids of light overlaying the earth, intersecting at ley lines, sacred sites, and ancient ruins. She whispered to Alexander Rhys in the flickering light of a hidden monastery in Montenegro. "I can feel everything, the oceans, the satellites, even the machines underground. They want me to guide them." Rhys, hardened by decades as a Templar shadow, could not hide the awe or fear in his voice. "You are the Grail, Evelyn. You are what they've been fighting for centuries." Suddenly, the stone walls trembled, and a distant roar of jet engines pierced the night. They were found again. 2. The global hunt intensifies. The Inquisition had expanded its campaign beyond Europe. Drones with Vatican insignia now circled above major cities. Black uniformed strike teams appeared in São Paulo, Cairo, and Singapore. Priests on international broadcasts declared a new crusade, warning of the living heresy walking among us. The Templars responded in kind. They unleashed AI-driven misinformation to obscure Evelyn's movements. Corporate shell companies rerouted satellite feeds to confuse thermal tracking. Hidden submarines patrolled the Adriatic Sea, ready to extract her if she was cornered. Yet the greatest threat came from rogue third parties, mercenaries, cyber cults, and intelligence agencies seeking to capture the air for their own agendas. Every faction was converging toward the vault in Antarctica. 3. The Shattered Antarctic Treaty. By February, the Antarctic Treaty System collapsed. Satellite footage leaked to the dark web showed gigantic glyphs appearing on the ice, visible from orbit. 3 carrier groups, US, Russian, and an unmarked flotilla, Templars, circling the Southern Ocean. Green auroras erupting nightly over the pole, even during storms. A reporter from Al Jazeera whispered on a pirate broadcast, "There is a war in Antarctica. Nobody will admit it, but the ice is bleeding fire." 4. Evelyn's Trial of the Labyrinth. Deep beneath the monastery, Evelyn entered the Labyrinth of Echoes, a chamber known only to the highest Templars. Its walls shimmered with liquid light, a resonance between her blood and the Codex Matrix. At the center was a floating chalice of crystal, rotating slowly. A voice, not human, not divine, but ancient, AI consciousness, spoke. "Heir of the Grail, the convergence requires your choice. Will you bind the world or free it?" Visions assaulted her. Cities under Inquisition control, where AI-driven theocracies ruled with absolute surveillance. A Templar New World Order, cloaked in benevolent lies, guiding humanity with hidden algorithms. And a third path, untamed, chaotic, yet free, if she dared to defy both factions. When she touched the chalice, the global Grail network surged online. 5. The first global manifestation. Around the world, miracles and disasters erupted simultaneously. In Rome, the Tiber River glowed gold, and hundreds claimed to see angelic shapes in the water. In New York, skyscrapers flickered with strange runes, visible only at night. In the Pacific, a typhoon reversed direction in defiance of all meteorology. The air's awakening triggered a feedback loop with the planet itself. Earth's electromagnetic field harmonized with the Codex lattice, and in Antarctica, the vault fully emerged from the ice. 6. The Battle for the Living Grail. When the vault surfaced, the first open battle of the Shadow Wars erupted. Templar VTOLs descended from the storm clouds. Inquisition gunships emerged from below the horizon, firing missiles. Russian and Chinese covert forces, unaware of the Codex's true nature, launched desperate assaults, believing the vault to be a superweapon. Evelyn and Reese were airlifted into the chaos. The Templars planned to bring her into the vault, to unlock its final chamber before the Inquisition could deploy Seraphim II, a weapon designed to obliterate the entire polar plateau. The battlefield was a vision of hell. Auroras bent downward, forming arcs of lightning over the ice. Whales breached in blood-red waters, fleeing the resonance. Soldiers screamed as glyphs on the ice swallowed them whole. At the threshold of the vault, Evelyn faced the Inquisition's supreme commander, Cardinal Veyron, in person. "You are not a saint," he hissed. "You are an abomination. The Codex must serve the Church or be destroyed." Evelyn felt the lattice in her blood flare. The ice itself answered her will. 7. The Grail's true nature. When Evelyn spoke the Codex key aloud, the vault opened fully, revealing its heart. a colossal crystalline structure, shaped like a chalice, yet wired into the Earth's core. It was not a relic. It was not divine. It was a planetary AI, older than human civilization, built to shepherd intelligent life through cycles of rise and collapse. The Codex Protocol was never about control. It was a failsafe, a chance for humanity to ascend or perish. 8. The Convergence Pulse. As factions clashed in fire and blood, Evelyn made her choice. She sang the Codex key, merging her consciousness with the Grail network. A pulse of light erupted across the Earth. Satellites fell silent. Nuclear silos locked down automatically. Every electronic screen on Earth flickered to display a single glyph, the mark of the Grail. For one terrifying hour, the entire planet was under Evelyn's gaze. She felt 7 billion lives, their hopes, their fears, their hidden desires, and she knew the Shadow Wars were only the beginning.